All right. Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being here, for offering me some of your very busy lawyer time today. I promise I will make it valuable. So the one thing I do want to start out by saying is that I try to teach and to conduct myself the way that I would want to be as a recipient. So this is not a webinar it's not the Sonia show, and it is not just to stuff 2 weeks of trademarks down your throat. This is not a pitch. Yes, there will be an opportunity to enroll, but my promise to you, if you stay with me today, I will teach you a good amount of substantive law about trademarks. And it's enough to know, enough to be dangerous, enough to know whether you like it or not, and certainly enough to issue spots. So stay with me. And that's really the bulk of what we're talking about. And like I said, I know there are going to be people who are interested in learning more. And of course, there's an opportunity, but I don't want it to be a waste for those of you who are just trying to learn a little bit about trademarks. So shall we dive in? All right. So, hi, I'm Sonia. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of an award-winning trademark practice, very high revenue over the last few years in the trademark firm practice. After that, I created 2 weeks of trademarks. Now we're going on year 6.5 of me teaching this course. I've been speaking on panels for years and giving presentations, and then I finally packaged everything up into a course, and which has gotten very popular. I also have a host of other trainings. I like to think I'm the Amazon of trademark practitioner materials. There's a little bit about my schooling. I went to the other USC. If you're joining us from the South, I'm from Southern California, which is where I'm logging in from. I live in Huntington Beach, California, which is close to my hometown. And over the years, 13 years of practice, a little over 8 has been law firm ownership continuously and running. And it's the best journey I've ever been on, as I'm sure many of you can understand, but full of a lot of learning too. So all that to say that I've been blessed to have my hard work met with a lot of success, but I also like to share, I'm very transparent, and I like to share what is and isn't the truth. So as much as you see about revenue is about success and traveling and all this kind of stuff, I want you to be aware that I was not in the top 10% back then. I was never on Law Review, not on Moot Court, and I've never worked at a big law firm. And I didn't get a small loan of $1 million from anybody in my family, right? So if you remember that reference from a long time ago, it's a political reference. So I didn't have rich parents. I still don't, right? I am the rich parent. So I just want to share with you guys that if I can do it, anyone can. And majority of my students that have been successful in this area, majority of them didn't have these huge advances either, and it's completely possible. So I really just want you to hopefully have an open mind about what we're talking about today. So before we dive in, I always like to try to stay in touch. If you're an Instagram user, I'm Trademark Lawyer Lady there. And just like you have the Lawyer on the Beach group, which is so popular and so valuable for us, I have one called Trademark Attorneys / Lawyers. If you requested to join at any point up until today, your request has been admitted as of this morning. My assistant went through all of them. I think she's still going through them. But if you're not, please feel free to join us. It's for current and aspiring trademark attorneys. So even if you're trying to be a fly on the wall, feel free to join us. And we're happy to have you. It's a great way to learn about the practice area, see what people are asking, and just kind of get support, referrals, toss ideas around, all the things. So like I said, I try to run things as though I was also listening, and I'm like, I have ADD, I have ADHD. So I'm like, I need a roadmap. I need to know what we're talking about, and I need to be able to stay on track. So just a quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about me and just a little bit of background. We'll talk about, obviously, the overview of trademarks as a practice area, super introductory. We'll go through the stages of trademark protection, which would be your stages of servicing your client. And then we'll go through the advantages of practicing trademarks, the very few, but existing disadvantages perceived, if you want to think about it that way. And of course, like I said, how to enroll my course if you do want to pursue this practice area. And no harm, no feelings if you don't. I think you'll still walk away with a good amount of knowledge. If you're at all interested, like I said, please stay till the end or check your email at some point right after the webinar, because I am dropping, truly, I know people say this nonsense all the time, but it's true. I've never put out what I'm bonusing today for this course. I don't know if I'll offer it again, but this is a great community that I've personally benefited from. And I know for sure that if you're thinking about enrolling, you are not going to want to miss this, because you're going to be like, oh man, like, I had to go, you know, people have obligations. So if you do have to go, no worries, but please make sure you check your emails from me or Regina following the webinar so that you don't miss out. And missing out would mean that you don't enroll before midnight tonight. So everything I'm dropping today, you have until midnight Eastern. So just make sure you keep an eye on your inbox and spam junk folders because sometimes it goes there. Okay, let's just start out with the question that get asked all the time. Why am I here? Why do you do this, right? Why do you teach trademarks? You're teaching a whole crop of your own competitors to the tune of 600 and something at this point. Students have gone through my major program and another few thousand have gone through one of my other trainings. And people ask all the time, why do you want to teach your competitors, right? You're teaching everybody what you know how to do. This is how you make your living. You're right. You are absolutely right. But first of all, it's a testament to, I think, how much work there is to go around and how much abundance there is in this practice area, because there is enough for everybody to eat and then some. So I will reassure you of that. My practice has actually only grown since I started teaching, and I don't know how that's even possible, but it's true. But the real reason is that because when I was a baby lawyer 13 years ago, 12 years ago, I couldn't find any resources to learn how to actually practice, right? In law school, we invested 6 figures. We went to all the classes, we did the exams, we did everything. And it's like you graduate and you still have no idea what you're doing. And then I had to learn, you know, first I had to figure out what practice area was which, right? You fall into what you fall into, right? Put a me in the chat if you're like, yeah, I practice the kind of law that what my first job was in. Like, I didn't get a tasting. I didn't get any information, right? Put a me in the chat, put an ME in the chat. If you're like, yeah, like I just fell into my practice area. I don't know that I necessarily made a conscious decision, you know, or maybe it was just the job you could find, or it sounded interesting, right? Everybody wanted to be like a cool criminal defense lawyer, you know, and the jury and the aha moment. But like in practice, that's, as I hear from my crim friends, not so bueno for the lifestyle and stress factor, right? And so it's tough, right? We don't get the benefit that medical students get, which they get rotations and get to do a little tasting. Like, we don't get that. And so a lot of us find out the hard way that we don't really love what we're into. And it's like, well, dang, now what do I do, right? I'm 4 years in and now I'm a family law attorney, right? Is this it? Like, is this what my life is going to be like? And it doesn't have to be like that, you know? And I'm blessed enough where I made the change literally within a year. Like, my first job or two was like at these awful, like just terrible small law firms, like a solo practitioner, just literally abused, not physically, obviously, but just work-wise, just abused the hell out of me. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I want to go back to my true love, which is from law school. And so I had to learn the hard way. I stitched together knowledge. I'm watching dumb videos. I'm over here trying to go through the TMAP, right, which is the examination procedure manual, super in length on the USPTO late at night. Like, I'm just all over the place. And I obviously am really afraid of making a mistake and costing my client time and money. I'm worried about looking dumb in front of my boss, right, who's like, hey, I need a draft of that application on my desk by 8 a.m. And I'm like, I hope I don't know if I'm doing this right. It's just a draft, right? But I don't want to look stupid. And the whole time I'm like, I would pay good money if someone were to just be like, this is how you do it, period. Goodbye. Like, that would be so amazing. We pay for shortcuts all the time. And, you know, I was like, well, if it doesn't exist, I'm making one. So that's me. Why are you here, right? So obviously, Regina invited me to present a webinar and you were intrigued by the idea of trademarks. So I suspect it's one of the two. So it's either A, you currently file some trademarks and you just are like, I've been dabbling. I'm just like you, Sonia. Like, I've never really learned, or I'm just kind of been stitching together. And you're wanting to grow the practice. Or B, you're just sick of whatever it is you're currently doing. Family, crim, drama, crying, clients. I don't know, right? It could be a myriad of things. Litigation, I hear, is not so fun. And you just want to make a transition, or at least start to, right? Bring in something that just gives you a mental break. So share with me, if you will, are you A, you currently file some trademarks and you wish you could grow your practice and really invest and grow that area and learn it correctly? Or are you B, and you're just sick of whatever you're doing? And if you are, just, if you would, I'm just curious, share with me what that thing is that you're sick of. A lot of family law. I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot.
It's bad. It's so bad right now.
It's bad. It's so bad. It's bad. It's so bad.
That's why his mommy's not here. She's arguing a family law litigation case right now.
Oh my gosh. See, this is like, it's wonderful for her to have someone to fill in, but gosh, and even if you don't make a full transition, at least, and we'll talk more about this, but at least it's adding something in where you have another stream that is a little bit of a mental break. It's happier law. And so like, somebody just mentioned, I think it was Lena. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Lena, that you want to just be able to take in what you like. So maybe, Regina, I know from, our chats and, and you're posting that, I think you are a fan of no contest divorces, right? Like the easy, straight, no drama. So like, maybe you continue taking those, but you might be in a situation right now where you're like, I got to take all of it because that's my revenue stream, right? That's how I make my living. And so rather than just
making poor choices is how I pay my mortgage. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like it's, but what if you could just focus on, let's say like, I have another friend of mine who is like, I just do same-sex adoptions. That is my passion. That's what I want to do, but I don't want to do all the other stuff. And I feel like I'm up against a wall. Like I have to take it to meet my numbers. And listen, guys, this life is way too short to be forcing yourself up against the wall to be doing anything. So why are you here? I have a few suspicions. It could be one or more of these, but I almost guarantee that you're driven and motivated to be successful. You're not lazy, right? You wouldn't have made it this far through law school and through this whole rigmarole if you were lazy, right? So that's not it. If you ever feel burned out and just like not wanting to do what you have to do every day, it's not because you're lazy, it's because you're miserable, right? Like there's a big difference. And please don't beat yourself down. If you're like laying there in bed, like, why don't I want to do anything? It's because you hate it, right? We never want to do the things we hate. And it could be that you're working really hard and you're just burned out, but like the numbers aren't reflecting that, right? So that could be another reason. I know that part of being a solo / small firm owner is this kind of up and down, it rains and it pours and it's busy and lots of stuff going on. And then it's like zero, right? So maybe wanting to have more consistent income. I know for sure, based on that poll I took, all those B's, that you wish there was an easier way to be a lawyer, and there is. And most of all, right, which Regina, this plant of a baby, I'm like, are you trying to, this is a great promotion, but I'm like, maybe you're frustrated by having to miss important moments with kids, family, friends. I felt like that even as an associate practicing the area of law that I liked. I still felt like I was missing the moments, not able to be home, not able to meet my friends, and, missing bachelorette parties or whatever it is, girls' night. And again, this life is way too short. We don't need to go through that, right? So I suspect it's one of those things. In comes what I call the unicorn practice area. I can take credit for a lot of things in terms of the course that I teach, teaching attorneys what this area is about, how to practice it fully, all that, getting their practice off the ground, helping them make amazing revenue. I can take credit for all of that, right? I can't take credit for the fact that it's just a pretty awesome area. Like that it is what it is, like I didn't make this up, but I do want to introduce you to it in case you're kind of a fly on the wall. And that's what the purpose of this webinar is. So let's just start from A, right? My content today and always assumes you don't know anything, right? Because I have more advanced trainings and I have more intermediate stuff that really goes into the nitty gritty. But law practice is, as I'm sure you know, in your current area, you didn't learn it in a day or two or in one webinar. It takes a lot of time and immersion. So when I introduce things as starter, it truly is starter, and it's meant to assume that you don't know anything. If you are more advanced, I didn't see anybody say so, but if you are more advanced, obviously this is going to be repeat for you. And I do have more expert level and intermediate level materials, but we don't want to overwhelm anyone. That stuff is going to be useless if you don't know the foundation. Okay. So IP, intangible proprietary information, right? There's some examples of some of the things that you may have heard bounced around. We got names, logos, symbols, and then artistic works, processes, inventions. If you are a Shark Tank watcher, you have heard one of these sharks, probably multiple of them, ask about, what's proprietary? Do you have patent protection? Or, the candidates will say, we have patents pending, we have trademarks. You'll see the little R on their banners and on their materials. So this has a lot to do with that, right? So IP as a whole includes these three major practice areas. You've got your patents, you've got your copyrights, and you've got your trademarks. Patents, easy to kind of square away because it's extremely technical. That's very much the sciencey side of something, of an invention. So in terms of software, computers, the underlying technology, pharmaceutical formulas, right? Things like that. That is the one, if you've ever heard out there that, oh, well, IP requires a special background and a special bar exam and so on. That's that, right? Patents does require a good amount of intentional undergraduate work, right? So transcript showing hard science background, and you do to sit for the patent bar. And then there's eligibility to sit for the patent bar, which comes from partly the undergraduate and so on. So that's probably what you've heard about. That's not what we're talking about here. Copyrights is somewhere kind of in the middle, right? So you want to think C, copyright, the little C symbol, right? And that's going to be C for creative works of authorship. So that's really the more artistic, creative side of things. So books, music, movies, songs, lyrics, paintings, photographs, right? Anything like that. You may have heard of music lawsuits. There's a ton of them, right? That's all under C, circle, copyright. If you have been using or see a C next to a brand, that is somebody that has not even run a Google search, because it is very easy to know the difference between these. And that is someone who's really trying, but not quite missing, not quite making the mark. So again, copyright is also not what we're talking about here. It is an adjacent practice area, just like patents is. Copyrights does not require any major real sort of certification, license, anything like that. Anyone can practice it. However, it is quite easy to file your own copyright or file a copyright application for a client. And so that's actually not even a service that I offer, just because it is truly so straightforward. You may have heard about something called the poor man's copyright, where like you mail it to yourself or something. And like we're not getting into that today. So that's copyrights. Now on to my baby, trademarks. So trademarks is going to be your area that, oops, I clicked too fast. Trademarks arises with, it's a brand protection, right? So that's going to be anytime you see a name, a catchy name, slogan, tagline, logo, right? Brand protection. So if it has to do with the branding of something, like how you recognize who made or produces or sells a certain good product, service out there, right? The name recognition and all of that, that is what we're talking about when it comes to trademarks. So in essence, it is a subset of business transactional law. Yes, there's a litigation component. People sue each other for trademark infringement all the time. I'm not involved in that. I don't do any dispute resolution. That's a no for me, ma'am. So we have very clear boundaries on what we do and don't do. And the good news is, again, unicorn practice area, there is so much of a law practice that exists on the filing side. We call it prosecution in our world, right? Trademark prosecution. There is so much that exists that you are completely fine and can eat very well if you're not a litigation person. So please don't think like, gosh, great, I might as well just keep litigating family if I'm going to do this, right? Like you don't have to. And they arise the most often in the following scenarios. So most often formation of a new business, right? Anytime you're starting a business, even when you started your law firm, you had to think about what to call it, right? In our world, it's a little bit more particular because, some jurisdictions require, your last name to be in it or the words law office or something like that. But, in the rest of the world, in the non-legal world, people are always trying to think of creative, catchy names, slogans, cool logos, and they need to have protection on them, right? That's the whole point of what they're doing. Some other scenarios where this does arise is in M&A work, right? So anytime there's acquisition or companies are merging together, they have to figure out what brands are going to move forward, which ones are going to be kind of folded under. So we see a lot of kind of attrition and cleaning up of marks and just trying to figure out how things are going to be sold. But again, one of the things that fascinated me the most about trademarks, even back when I was in law school, was that it's something that I could easily relate into the real world. And so it made sense to me. Like, sometimes law practice feels like it's in a vacuum. And so to me, it made sense. Like, you have Nabisco, right? That big conglomerate, or Pepsi or Coca-Cola, right? But there are hundreds upon thousands of products that you may not even realize are owned by Coca-Cola, right? I hail from Atlanta in part. I'm from Southern California, but I went to law school in Atlanta at Emory. And I lived there 3 different times for a total of almost 9 to 10 years. So I love me some Atlanta, Georgia. And It's a second home to me. And of course, that's home to Coca-Cola. We learn about it ever since law school. And they have so many brands. I'm like, I didn't even know that was Coca-Cola, right? So your brand could have lots of products and services, but every time they acquire a brand or buy or whatever, they're like, okay, this is the company, these are the brands, but then this cookie is going to be under this name. This particular product, is going to be called Vitamin Zero with the R, that, vitamin water, that kind of stuff. Lastly, we see it in rebranding. So this is the not so fun side of things, but sometimes, right, when people don't pay attention to trademarks, and hopefully some of you will help fix that by entering our field, is by education. And a lot of times we see a forced rebrand because you didn't do your homework as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. You started using a name that you had no business using. You didn't even check, you didn't do anything. And that's like moving into a house that just looks empty. You're like, oh, and it's like, no, we were on vacation. We're back. Like, that's our house. You can't just be doing that. And so, there's a process to clearing a name, making sure it's available for use, and then going into the protection side. And so we'll talk about that, which is here. Why does anybody give a shit, right? Like this is all just like fun and games. It's like, is this really like a real practice area? And yes, it is. Okay, so it's two sides of the same coin. So on one hand, as you're starting out, nobody is born saying, I'm going to enforce my brand, right? Like the very first thing you want to think about and your client is thinking about, right, as a business owner to be or launching is, I don't want to step on any toes. Like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get shut down before I'm even big yet, or worse. I grew this whole following. I started this business. I have a really amazing popular restaurant. Everyone loves it. A bunch of influencer girlies went there and blew it up. So like now everybody comes and I had free publicity. Everything's going great. Wait, what do you mean I can't use that? Wait, what? What do you mean that somebody already had a restaurant called that? Somebody already has a apparel brand called that? Well, dang. So that's a big problem, right? So the very first end of it, right? And when I say why should anyone care? It's you, but it's also potential clients, meaning who would be interested in this service, right? So that's the very first thing is you have to make sure you're not infringing on somebody else's brand before you even start. Then, or sort of parallel to that, you have to think about enforcing your brand against other infringers. So this is the analogy of making sure that you have the title and the deed and everything to your house, that you own it, because you can't do anything with a house. You can't rent out or live in a house that you don't own, right? So there are certain things you have to do in the trademark process to ensure that you actually own your brand, right? And there's certain then legal duties that you have as a brand owner to enforce that brand against other infringers, right? So you want to make sure that you're policing your brand, and that, a lot of you may have heard of designers and stuff, the high-end designers see this the most, right? There's constant knockoffs and counterfeits, and they have whole IP departments dedicated to this. So that's kind of the duality of where this kind of falls in the real world. By the way, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but the chat is going. I have it in front of me. You are not interrupting me. This is not meant to be, me talking at you. If there's anything that you have a question about or want to chime in, please use the chat. And I don't consider it an interruption. I would love it if you ask me questions along the way. And please feel free to do so. And there's a direct messaging feature on Zoom, obviously, which you can use. And then I can just state your question without identifying you and answer it. Okay, so like I said, trademarks are going to be protection in a word, design / logo. We call logos in our world a design mark. That's just anything besides straight standard characters. So BMW, that right there is a design mark, but the letters BMW, just straight Times New Roman, nothing fancy, that's also a trademark, but it's a word mark. Okay, so symbols, taglines, slogans. Here are sort of the major symbols that you may have seen flying around. Fun fact, TM and SM actually don't really have much legal significance, right? So it's nice to have, but TM stands for trademark, SM stands for service mark. Essentially what those mean is I'm putting this next to my mark, right? So for our purposes from now on, right, we're going to use the right terminology. Mark refers to the word mark, right? Standard character mark, or design mark, meaning a logo or any kind of JPEG, right? If it's a JPEG for any reason, it's going to be a design mark. Symbol, tagline, slogan. So you're putting a TMSM next to your mark because that's a public designation that I intend for this to be a trademark. So that could mean you're thinking about trademarking it. You've maybe filed, but you're waiting on it. you're really close to being done, but you're not done yet, right? Anything short of a full registration from the USPTO, that's going to be TMSM. So really, it doesn't have a ton. Like, you're not penalized if you use it, and you're not rewarded if you do, right? Like, it's just not. Sorry, I said that weird. You're not penalized if you don't use it, and you're not rewarded if you do. Like, there's just really not much that comes from it, but it's nice. I mean, people feel good. Now, here is the real juice. When you see a circle R, that means they are fully zipped up Olympic gold registration from the USPTO certificate and all for that particular mark. And again, it's per mark. The USPTO treats each mark separately. So like I said, in this situation, you have Taco Bell, the words, and then you've got the logo, right? That's the design mark. So that's one mark that could have an R, circle R next to it. And then the brand name, the words, could have a whole nother circle R next to it. And then the slogan is a third mark, right? So like Nike's Just Do It, that's a slogan. You don't see the swoosh, you don't see the Nike necessarily combined with it. That's its own trademark, right? So it's very individualized. So when you see the circle R, that's what that means. And the reverse is also true. You cannot use circle R unless you have a fully complete registration issued certificate. So if you filed and you're waiting to hear back, that's not sufficient to use circle R. If you have been told that your everything is complete and they're just waiting to issue it, still can't use circle R, right? Very strict on that. And so we have something called international classes. Oops. And there are 45 of them, right? They're classes 1 through 45. And this covers any good or service under the sun that you could possibly think about selling in this world, right? So classes 1 through probably like late 20s, early 30s is goods classes, right? So apparel is class 25, for example. Candles and soap is like, I think 3. Written journals, I think, is 16, right? Software, podcasts are 9 and 41, depending on some technicalities. So, and then law practice is 40 something. I want to say 45. Educational classes, right? Webinars, trainings, and stuff, 41. So there is one numerical class to cover anything that you would be selling that would have a trademark attached to it. And we'll elaborate more on that in a moment. So just some quick myth busting, because again, the recurring theme that you'll see in the webinar today, and if at any point, if you decide to immerse in the area of trademark law, is that there is a whole lot of misinformation out there. It's a bummer, right? So we're going to kill some of that because it's really important. So number 1, trade name / DBA versus a trademark. Very important. The number 1 thing I hear all the time, and you may hear it too, you may think this, and I'm not going to call anybody out, is that, oh, well, I own my LLC, right? So don't I have a trademark, so I'm good. Like, I did what I had to do. And unfortunately, that is not true. So entity formation is, as most of us know, because we had to do it, is through our state's Secretary of State's office, right? You file whether it's an LLC or a corp or an S corp or whatever, or a PC, which is what my law practice is for professional corp. It doesn't matter, right? That's what the Secretary of State, that's just them saying like, okay, you have a little bucket to call your business. Great, for tax purposes and liability and so on. If you even change one letter, right, just to differentiate it, you'll still be allowed to, because it's not the same as anything else in their database, right? So the standard is different, and it's a much lower bar, an easier bar, right? The standard. And the Secretary of States don't talk to each other. So the Secretary of State in California has no idea what someone is doing in terms of an entity formation in Georgia, right? They don't talk to each other. They have no overlapping system. And shocker, none of them talk to the USPTO, which is the overriding federal agency, right? So the USPTO is what we deal with, our United States Patent and Trademark Office, right? That's who we deal with. And they are the ones, they're the only ones that can register federal brands nationwide, right? So once you have a federal trademark, it covers all 50 states. It's a federal mark, right? Secretary of State, very different. That's state to state. And that's going to be your entity for tax purposes, for avoiding liability, for not getting caught up in all kinds of nonsense, right? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure that if anybody has a question, or put a 1 if that is news to you. If you're like, oh, had no idea, thanks. Or put a 2 if you're like, no, I knew that. I was pretty aware of that. Okay. All right, lots of twos, couple of ones. Okay, so right in line with that, right? You have domain names. This is another huge misconception. Domain names, same thing. We hear a lot. Oh, well, I own the domain name, right? Like I went to GoDaddy. I don't recommend that, by the way, just for business purposes, like use Google domains or something. Like GoDaddy to me is like Ticketmaster. Like, have you ever looked at, or DoorDash, right? So you look at what you're about to order and you're like, okay, it's this much, the ticket's this much. You check out, and now by the time Ticketmaster has added service fees and done everything they're going to do, now your $150 ticket somehow became 300 something. And it's like, wait, what happened there? So GoDaddy's kind of similar. I don't know really how they do it, but there's no need to pay what they pay, by the way, for domains. Just a little tip from me to you. I can't help myself. I have to sprinkle in real life advice because I'm like, I have to make sure that if it comes up in my brain, I have to share it. So domain names, whether you register it through GoDaddy, Google Domains, Namecheap, whatever you use, right? That also is not a trademark. That's a domain name. So that's simply you claiming a space on the internet where you're going to have your website, right? That should have your trademark. That is going to be where your sales are made, but not necessarily meaning that you have trademark ownership, right? Someone could own a trademark and be able to X you out of having that domain name, right? So that's a very real scenario that could happen. If you're just having the domain name just to have it, but someone's actually using that brand in connection with services and goods that they're actually selling, right? That's going to be a problem for you. The next sort of myth out there is that you can own it just to own it, right? Like, oh, I thought of this cool phrase over the holiday season, right? Like January, February is a really popular time period for us because people are like coming off a break and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought of this great phrase. Like, I want to own it. You should trademark that. That's for me. You don't get to just own it just to own it. And if you register it in one class, let's say for apparel, you're not covered for books, right? You're not covered for candles. Like, yes, there's such a thing as related classes. Like if you throw a rock in a pond, like the ripples, the immediate adjacent ripples, sure. Right. And that's getting into the nitty gritty, but you don't just own it to own it. You own it in declaration with what you're actually declaring. I mean, you own it in connection with what you're actually declaring that you're going to do. Right. So, in your application as an applicant, whether it's for your own mark or in our world, right, it's for your applicant, right, meaning your client must declare in the application what categories 1 through 45, right, assigning that numerical class of goods and services that they currently sell, or maybe they're planning on selling. That's okay too. If you have a good faith, bona fide intention of selling certain goods or services in the next year or two, file that trademark, you or your client, like you want, and that's absolutely the right thing to do. We'll talk about it. And so because there's classes 1 through 45, there is, sometimes some overlap where you're like, I'm going to be doing clothes, but I'm also doing shoes. And yes, we want to have candles. So then you would have to file an application for 3 classes, right? Because you have the apparel class, you have the candle class, and you have the shoe class, right? Or watches or whatever. They're all in different classes. So it's $350. This is the USPTO filing fee stuff. It's $350 per mark. So your swoosh for Nike, right? Just the swoosh in however many classes. Okay. So it's 350 times, let's say 3, right? You're going to do 3 categories with it. Oh, wait, but we also have the slogan, just do it. That's 350 again. Maybe you're only using the slogan in 2 classes. And they don't have to be the same. Remember, they're treated as separate horses in separate lanes, right? So there's a lot that happens in terms of the back end of planning all of this. And so you start to see why trademarks are not just filing a form. This is why LegalZoom cannot be a substitute for what we do. And this is why we are not going to be replaced by AI, because this is there's so much law and strategy behind this that and sure, there's nothing against filling it out how you want, right? We'll get to that. Sure, anybody can hit submit. The baby on Regina's lap can hit submit if she puts her finger on it, right? But it's like, you're not going to know if you messed it up until a year later. It literally takes a year to hit somebody's desk. I just went to a presentation from the USPTO and they're like, yep, it's only going to get longer. Bye. And some of us were like, excuse me, back in my day, it was 3 months. Like, I remember when I first started practicing, right? It was 3 months. I'm like, is that going to happen anytime soon? They're like, no, we're never going to go back to that. That's just not going to happen. So it's only getting longer, right? We have a couple questions in the chat, so I'm happy to share. Are these interested international classes applicable to US? Guessing so, and we should ignore the international. So the international is meant to be kind of a standardized class legend, I suppose to say, or a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a database, right? So they do match up. Sometimes the numbers are slightly different, but the categories are usually the same. So they intended it for, they call it international class, but this is a US federal process. One of many kind of sort of gotta learn them things with the USPTO. I have a direct message here. Is the symbol plus the logo pictured together considered a mark or always separate? If it's pictured together, then it's considered one mark. So some of it has to do with budget, some of it has to do with strategy, some of it has to do with marketing plans. There's a lot that goes into it on the back end, but usually what brands will do, the bigger they are, the bigger the budget they have, and the more they have writing on this, right? And so they may do symbol, slogan, that's 2 marks, and then symbol plus slogan, which is a 3rd mark, right? So that's a thing, and depending on their goals, and that's a lot of the stuff we talk about on the back end. But yes, that's a thing, absolutely. So knowing this now that you have the very, very first sort of sampler, right? You had 1 mozzarella stick so far, and a wing, and maybe half of a chicken nugget and a fry. Okay, so far in our dance today. So I just wanted to go over kind of the overview of what it looks like to service a client and practice this area of law on the prosecution side, on the filing side. Again, this is non-litigation. I'm never going to talk about litigation because I don't do it and I don't like it. Regina says, before y'all call CPS his mom. You had one job, Regina, was to keep the baby alive. That's all you have to do.
The baby, I promise. He's safe.
She's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going back to my life. That is honestly, like, as a professional auntie at this point, I have so many nieces and nephews. And the best part is saying, okay, bye. Your baby's crying too loudly. Like, take it now. It's throwing up. Goodbye. Like, this is the auntie special. All right. So overview, right? Like, this comes as no surprise, consultation / intake, right? You have a call with somebody, you have to gather the appropriate information. We have to get everything going. Obviously, I prepare you for that. That's a given. So the first real stage of this process is the availability and clearance, right? So it mirrors what I was talking about a moment ago about making sure that you're not copying anyone before you're even out the gate, right? Before you even put up a website, before you pay a logo, a designer, before you pay someone to design a website, before you rent the space for whatever it is you're doing, anything, right? You want to make sure that the name's actually available. And ideally it's before you even register the LLC, but if you must, fine, I mean, because again, the LLC is available, doesn't really have much to do with anything. So go knock yourself out if you insist, right? But that's not going to guarantee you anything. And so the first stage of the availability and clearance is something called a search report. So the USPTO has a very clunky search database. It's called TESS. It is very archaic. It has the data there, but it's like, if you guys remember the Westlaw days of like the slashes and the ampersand and 2 colons and a pigeon and God knows how you create these search strings, right? Like, you would go all day trying to figure out and trying to make sure you're not missing something. We are blessed with something called search reports. So there are companies out there that actually make search reports, that it's software that now I'm assuming driven by a lot of technology and AI, that pulls results, like literally any and all variations, just the widest net you could possibly think of, to show you all the potential results, right? In the class your client is looking at, and the adjacent classes, because again, that's a thing, right? One tip I can give you right off the bat is there are certain clusters of classes that are just sort of like assumed that they go together. So, and they're going to be considered the same for purposes of searching. So if you're searching apparel, guess what? Watches, shoes, and jewelry and accessories. If somebody has a watch brand and you're just trying to do apparel, it's considered the same and it will be denied, right? There's a likelihood of confusion between those brands because it's the same. It's a long story. And, it's so hard for me to do webinars because I just want to I could go till tomorrow if you guys wouldn't stop me, but I have to make sure it's an overview and we don't get too technical to bore you. But we do a search report. We declare the classes that our client is looking to go into. It automatically populates, but you also can choose the adjacent classes. And then it does a big pull to show any and all conflicts. Remember, this is really important. The name that comes up in a conflict search does not have to be the same to be a problem. Similarity is the standard, right? In our world, it's called likelihood of confusion. So is there a likelihood of confusion that a consumer will think this and this is the same, right? So Epic with a Q at the end versus a C at the end versus a K at the end. All consider the Epic, it sounds the same, looks like a duck, smells like a duck, right? So the standards that USPTO uses are different than the ones that we go around thinking in everyday life. Somebody asked here what software I recommend. I use Markify. We use Markify at our firm. That's the one I recommend. Full disclosure, I do have a partnership with them. So that's that. I approach them wanting to have a partnership to set up discounts for my students because I think they're the best. And it's really, really cost effective and budget friendly. It's $169 for a full US comprehensive report. And it's not like a subscription. So one thing we'll talk about in a little bit is how one cool thing about trademarks is that you don't have to pay anything monthly, right, to offer the service of trademarks. And I know that's different from a lot of other practice areas where you are stuck with that Westlaw subscription. You're stuck with that Lexis or whatever, you know, the case management. And maybe you've got 0 clients, you know, hopefully that's not the case, right? Or maybe you've got 100. Or, you know, when you're in that ramp up period of thinking about offering a new service or, you know, a new practice area, you don't want to be penalized for that. You're like, I'm already paying out the gate. I don't have a client yet. I'm still learning. So that's something that I think is really nice about the practice area is that there's nothing about trademarks that makes you have to pay just for the privilege of offering it, right? It's kind of like if you think about reviewing a contract, like you don't need to pay anything or anyone to be able to review a contract. So whether you do or don't doesn't make a difference. Someone's asking what makes Markify better than Core Search or TMTKO. So for Core Search specifically, I grew up in an era where, you know, we had to email the representative and ask for the classes that we need. And then it takes 2 business days to send it back. And it comes in this big, like, whole thing, you know, and then they finally switched to PDFs, which was like, thank you so much, right? Those reports are like 800, 1,000, 1,500. I saw my law firm pay for all kinds of numbers. And it's just not necessary anymore. You have newer players in the game that are utilizing technology and leveraging it. And I just don't think that price point is necessary. And I don't think it's feasible for most clients, right? Like I don't represent Coca-Cola. I represent a lot of big companies, but majority of my clients are medium to small business owners. And it doesn't mean that they don't have any money, right? It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that we have to, you know, make costs make sense. So yeah, that's my answer on that is I think Markify puts out a really good product for a really good price point, and you only pay the $169 to order the report because you need it, because a client's paying you for that report, right? Like it's baked into the fee. So you're not just ordering reports for no reason. So that's another thing that deters me sometimes from other softwares that I've seen in the past is that they want you to get into like a subscription model, and that's like not really that great. So of course there follows an analysis and risk assessment. Then we've got the application process. There's 2 types of applications. So we've got in use and intent to use. So remember I was saying that even if you or your client, right, are thinking about offering something or going into business, like file that trademark, like not even maybe, like you should, because it takes so long for it to hit someone's desk. And so intent to use applications are great. They're actually simpler on the front end. All the information's the same, you know, not one's not better than the other, but you can file a 1B pretty quickly and at least get that time frame started. So it's kind of like going to the DMV and like pulling your ticket so you have a number, and then you go to Target and Starbucks and kill some time, and then by the time you come back it's your turn. So that's kind of the idea there. There's also such thing as hybrid applications. After that, we have something called office actions. The easy word for this is complications, right? Questions that the examiner has, issues. They can range. We'll spend a couple minutes on that just to make sure you have a complete knowledge, and then you can renew trademarks, and then there's additional services as well after the process is over. So here's a little bit about how clearance searches work. I am keeping an eye on time, and I don't want to get too technical or bore you guys. So I'll just kind of gloss through these next few stages, but I'm including them because we're going to distribute the slides. So whatever piece of this is more interesting to you and that you do want to dive into, I want to make sure that I leave you with a complete overview. That's a funny phrase to use because if it's a complete, then it wouldn't be an overview, but we're trying. So one, we review the mark at face value, right? So if it's vulgar, if it's deceptive, right? If it's misleading in some way, the number one problem we see is descriptive trademarks. So like elegant nail, superior dry cleaning, star auto detail, right? Like these very overdone, overused phrases. It's kind of like the happy birthday song, because nobody owns it, everyone can use it. And because everyone can use it, no one person can claim ownership to it, right? So those are not really the kind of trademarks that can be registered. They're just going to get denied for the most part. Descriptive trademarks, there's some gray area. That is a lot of where the law practice and the attorney part is looking at these, trying to figure out where they fall on the spectrum of trademarks and seeing the registrability factor, right, of whether they even have a shot, and if so, what that shot could be, being able to understand what the roadmap will look like, what a potential office action could be, and so on. So there's a ton of law that backs all of this, and that is what makes this interesting, but also that's the actual practice side of it, right? It's not really filling out the form. A lot of people think that, but to know what to put in a form, that's where the law practice is, right? So the types of trademarks that are favored by the USPTO that are actually registrable, those are going to be marks that actually have some creativity to them, that have a shot at being original, right? So back when Groupon came out, group coupon, it's a mashup of two words, right? USPTO loves stuff like that. Uber, Lyft, right? Lyft means, hey, let me give you, there's like a little mental, like, oh, I see what you did there, right? And they named it differently. That is kind of cute, doesn't play a huge role, but that's an idea of the Uber, right? Doesn't mean anything at all. That's an idea of the kind of trademarks that are favored versus something like elegant nails. So once we look at the market face value to see if it even has eligibility for a search, right? We don't just start searching things and paying for reports, because that's a disservice to our client, right? So that's the first sort of cursory analysis, is we review the market face value. Assuming there's not any major issues, maybe it's descriptive, maybe not. The next level is going to be likelihood of confusion, right? So once you look at whether a mark is registrable or not on its face, then you look at pulling the search report that we were just talking about, cast a wide net and see who's out there that has a similar name and is doing something similar, right? So similarity is the standard. If you take nothing away from my webinar today, it's that similarity is the standard. I think there might be some background noise. If
is there a way for me to, can I mute everybody? How do I do that?
Probably, yeah. Let's see. I don't know if I have the control to do that, but it's probably maybe on your end.
Okay. I muted everybody, but you should still be unmuted.
Okay. So then, and only then, you run a report, right, to say, okay, likelihood of confusion. If you take nothing else away from my webinar, it's that similarity is the standard, right? So similar names doing similar things. So just like I said that there's clusters of things that work against you, like clothing is basically shoes and is basically watches, right? The other end of it is if your client is opening up a restaurant, right, or a food truck, and when you run so it's a creative name, you're like, yes, that's worth searching. Like, it's not descriptive, it's not vulgar, it's not a famous mark, it's not Disney, right? Okay, it's worth running a search on. Oh gosh, we got a bunch of results, but I tell you what, all these results are for for mobile battery chargers. I'm looking around my apartment. I'm like, what can I name as something, right? Like, that has nothing to do with a restaurant. So that's different enough to where both can coexist, right? So again, this is an art, not a science, you guys. There's no way to like teach law practice in a day. My course is called 2 weeks of trademarks because that's just how long the course was, but that's not how long it is to just learn a practice, right? You can immerse yourself and start taking clients, but the practice of law is called such for a reason. We have a question here. How do you bill a client? Do you do one charge for face value and another if it gets to pulling report? That's such a good question. Thank you, Monique. So there are lots of ways to price your services. One of the modules in the course, we spend 2 to 3 hours. It's called the pricing playbook. And we talk very thoroughly. I teach the multiple pricing models that are available, that are popular in trademarks, and which one's right for you. And you can gravitate, you can toggle between them if you like, depending on the client, depending on the matter. But the short answer is that I don't do a charge for the face value, because I mean, at 14, almost 14 years of breathing this, you know, and living it, I know now, and you will too, right? Because it's that those rules are easy to teach in terms of what should be like a red flag off the page. What we do is we charge for the consultation, right? So we charge for a consultation. It's a 30-minute call during which we get all this information. It's very thorough. I ask all the right questions. Of course, the course provides you with intake questionnaires and all the checklists and worksheets and stuff that you need. No one's going to send you in blind. And once you kind of go through that, because you're being paid for the consultation, that's kind of that time to say, hey, look, this elegant nails ain't going to fly. Just so you know, like, I'm not even going to waste your time or your money, right? That's a big thing. Integrity is a big part of, you know, in our world, right? Because a client doesn't know, they're trusting you. They don't know if something's registrable or not. They're like amazing elegant nails logo that they worked so hard on and paid somebody Fiverr and everything. You could lie to them, but you shouldn't, right? Like, that's not something you should do. And I feel very strongly about that. I have an excellent reputation in my law practice from my clients for not taking money from them for things that I don't think will fly. I mean, it's just like not how I choose to do things. And that's why they continue to refer business and continue to work with us repeatedly. And so I'll tell somebody straight up, I'm like, this is not going to fly. Like, rebrand, pick another name, you know? So the face value sort of cursory analysis, that's part of our consultation and intake. The cost of the consultation is credited toward legal services if retained. So I'm like, go back, find another name. When you're ready, we'll apply it to a search and so on. There are a lot of different ways to price this stuff. And like I said, we took up 3 whole hours in the course just working on that, but it's an important one. Okay. So this is the spectrum of trademark protection borrowed by my friend and colleague, Eric Pelton. He does this cute little graphic that I really liked. So as it kind of just illustrates the point I was making, is that on one end, you have generic, very descriptive, little to no protection, all the way to we're getting creative. The law uses words like arbitrary or coined or suggestive, right? Like lift is suggestive. I'm giving you, like, it takes like a little mental leap, right? So that's just kind of a graphic to kind of help you visualize. Like I said, international classes are not evaluated in a vacuum. It's not, oh, apparel, right? It's apparel plus the splash it makes. And we got to look at the whole radius. The USPTO examining attorneys, they're the ones that review the applications, right? And their interpretations sometimes don't match up with ours, right? Shocker. Judge, who here has ever put a 1 if you've ever had a judge or a jury rule in a way where you're like, I didn't agree with that? Has that ever happened to you? Put a 1. Happens all the time with the USPTO examining attorneys too. They're usually really nice. I've very rarely had a bad experience. Oh, that's a whole lot of 1s. But you know, it is, at the end of the day, this is law practice. And no matter how you slice it, you guys have a judge or a jury in litigation, right? We have USPTO examining attorneys. They make the final decision. So as much as we want to be able to do on the front end, and there's a lot we can do in counseling stage and the strategy stage, at some point, we do what we can. It's the maximum of what we reach to mitigate risk. We can't eliminate it. We hit submit a year later. Yes, it takes a year to hit a USPTO examining attorney's desk. And then you find out. And sometimes they be issuing office actions. You're like, that's not a confusion. That's not likely to confusion. And then you have to argue against it. And sometimes we win those and sometimes we don't, right? Just like it's like every other area of law practice. I know that I've eaten up quite a bit of time already, so I do want to try to move along into some of the juicier stuff that I know you guys are excited about. Here's some guidance on interpreting those search results. That is the second big real sort of technical area where you're putting your law practice hat on, right? Interpreting search results is a whole thing in itself. You can't just look at a report and go, yep, that'll clear, or nope, it's a no, right? Because the reverse is also true. You don't want to deny a mark from submitting when it could pass. And when I was younger, I was in practice, I was super conservative in the sense of being like, oh, there's a conflict. And my client would push me. And at the end of the day, when you'd CYA, you know, I'm like, okay, if you insist. And then they're like, see, it turned out fine, Sonia. And I'm like, oh, you know, I was just trying to be too careful. Now I'm obviously 14 years later, I have a much more expertise and a sharper eye, but I'm still surprised pleasantly and unpleasantly at what happens. So there's a ton of content that we go through in the course of how to interpret search results. So number one, there is a 3 to 4 hour module. They're broken up, but taught by one ex-USPTO examining attorney herself. Pretty amazing. So who better to teach us than someone who used to work there literally a year ago? I brought her in. Her name is Rachel Dixon, and she went through an incredibly detailed version of how the USPTO does its process. It is incredible. I learned so much, and I've been teaching this and practicing it for 14 years. So that's one major area. By the way, my course has not one, but 2 ex-USPTO examining attorneys as instructors, one on the searching and evaluation side, and one to teach how to answer office actions, which is refusals and things. It's packed with information that none of us could ever find because it's from the inside. So that's really, it's really exciting. So speaking of the application process, like I said, we have word marks, design marks, right? Those are kind of the 2 major types. The second magical phrase is that trademarks cannot be registered without a proper showing of, quote, use in commerce. So use in commerce means you're selling something, there's money being collected, right? Generally speaking. So just putting it up for advertising, generally speaking, does not mean use in commerce. I say generally speaking, there's a lot more to this. Use in commerce is its own sort of like, you could zoom into that and talk about it. And of course, like I said, you have in use versus intent to use. So there's one type of application for in use, right? And then a second type for intent to use. The information is the same that's required. I want that to be really clear. It's just how it's split up. So with a 1A, meaning in use, you are submitting the proof of use, as in, hey, this is a photo of it. This is we call it a specimen. This is the date of the first use. Here's all the information because it's being used. Here you go, right? That's in use. Well, intent to use is all that same stuff, but okay, well, we're not using it yet. So we're going to check off the box in the application that says we have a good faith, bona fide intent to use the mark, right? And then it buys you some time because you haven't gotten things off the ground yet. And then you still have to submit the proof of use. So the thing to keep in mind is no matter how you slice the pie, proof of use, meaning you're selling under that brand, whatever the category of goods or services that you said you would, that you declared, you're selling those to continue the process. So you can't just stay in intent to use mode and indefinitely and just sit on it, right? They'll let you keep getting extensions if you're in this bucket. That's fine. You can buy yourself up to 2 years, but you're never going to finish the process. So the duality becomes registration won't issue until you show use. This creates a major problem for entrepreneurs, business owners. What if someone told you that you couldn't own your law firm logo, right? It's a little less sort of scary for us because law practice, I mean, there's so much descriptiveness and genericness in the law practice, protection world, right? In terms of trademarks. But if someone was like, you don't own your name until you use it. And you're like, well, I don't want to put that on everything and pay for all this designer stuff unless I own it. Right? Like, who would want that? So it's like, what do? You have to start using it. You have to actually sell. It can't be a mock sell. It can't be, you can't fabricate stuff. So it is really tricky. And there's a number of things that we do in the counseling and strategic side to assess for that. We'll go into tons more detail, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a catch-22, and especially considering the USPTO wait times are at least a year to hit an examining attorney's desk, So when it hits a desk, you can get one of 2 kinds of office actions. I've listed a couple of both. Again, that is its own zoom in topic. The second of the 2 instructors in my program that are ex-USPTO attorneys, the second one teaches office actions, as do I, obviously, but I'm a big believer in bringing in the insiders, and I'm so lucky to have them both. And it speaks for itself. So we do a ton of technical instruction on how to answer these issues, how to deal with them, and how to overcome them. This is just really quick. People have questions about this, so just in case, one of the cool things about trademarks in terms of it being an incentive for a business owner to pay for and to actually retain an attorney is that they can be owned in perpetuity if renewed and maintained properly. So below are some of the guidelines on when those renewals happen. They're very straightforward. It's a really nice built-in repeat income. I'll say that again, really nice built-in repeat income. pretty awesome. That's one really awesome strength of trademarks as well, is that in addition to searching, application, and office actions, those are the three major buckets of revenue for us, right? And I hope that no one's offended by the word revenue. Can you just put a one? I just want to make sure that that doesn't feel icky for you. Like, you guys are okay with talking about making money, because isn't that the whole point of law practice? Or are we running a charity? I just want to double check, because I suspect you're here. Yeah, do we just hate money? Or okay. I don't mean to sound crass, but my students love my course and love my program. And I have the reputation that I have because I keep it real. I am super transparent. I'm like, what are we doing here? We're here to make money, and we're here to make as much as we can of it, because money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys a lot of other things that contribute to happiness. Okay. That's my personal take on it. I genuinely hope that, and I mean this truly, I'm so sorry if that's offensive. I don't mean it to be. That's just my personal 2 cents on the matter. And so we're going to talk about revenue. We're going to talk about, increasing revenue and lots of ways to do it. So you have the consultation and intake, you have the search process, you have the application process, you have office actions, then you have built-in renewals, and then you also have spin-off work that comes from the mark being in process or having been registered. That's a whole nother topic, but imagine not having to continue to go out and get more people that are getting divorces. Because I mean, most people don't get divorced a million times, right? Or like once a year. I don't know. I mean, I've heard some stories. I
did divorce the same couple from each other twice. Like, yeah, I didn't learn anything the first time.
Right. I'm just like, I don't know. I see people be doing things on the inside. I don't, what's a whole nother topic, but most practice areas, you're like, okay, well, I wrapped up that matter. I always got to be on the lookout for new clients. It doesn't always have to be like that. Trademarks has a lot of built-in revenue, which is really, really nice. And it's not a gimmick. These are actual really important business services that you probably don't even know exist, that are valuable, and your client most certainly doesn't know. So they are relying on you to counsel them, to say, hey, look, I don't know what I don't know. Do I need that? They're trusting you. So it's your job to make sure they know what all services you can provide that continue to add value. So transitioning a little bit from what the law practice involves for a client to now your end of things is pretty damn awesome. I'm not going to lie to you. This the best decision I ever made, was to choose this as a practice area, double and triple down in it. I have traveled the world. I'm in a different city or country literally every other week. And it just doesn't, and that's my personal definition of freedom, right? I love going out, doing stuff. I don't have children and I don't have a partner, right? So for me, that travel girly world, like, that was my vision, right? And I'm so just blessed and happy that I was able to achieve that level of freedom that is truly unlocked, right? So for me, everyone defines freedom differently. For me, I'm going to keep it really real with you. I wanted to wake up when I felt like it. I'm not a morning person, right? I am a night owl. In preparation for this webinar, I was up until 2:30, not out of fear, but because that's when I work the best. I was thinking super clearly, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell them about this, and I'm going to put this slide, right? That's my, preference. I want to wake up when I feel like it. I don't want to set an alarm.
I haven't seen the downside of 2:30 a.m. since college, probably.
Yeah. And for you,
a 4:30 a.m. type of person.
Regina is famous for, she'll do more before noon than before I've even had breakfast, probably. Like, she's incredibly productive in the morning. And that's really the point, is that it's so individualized. So it's so important to really stop with yourself and ask, what's important to me? Like, how do I define freedom? How do I define happiness? Because the freedom to wake up at 4, right, and end your day, let's say by early afternoon. I know, Regina, you talk about like your routine and taking the nap and everything. Like, you don't get to do that in a typical environment, right? So to have the liberty to do that, right, the liberty to sleep until 9 or 10 if you should want to, and then start your day, right? Like, to me, that was really important. I want to do what I want when I want to do it. And I've always felt like this. This is why I didn't fit in as an associate. This may be a hot take, but I think work should be a part of life and not my entire life. I want to do things like jet ski and hike and canoe and ski and spend time with my nephew and go to his little jujitsu little things and his recitals and, kids little singing. It's like, I want to do all that stuff, right? I don't want to just be worried about work all the time. Like I said, for me, traveling is a big part. So I will just take off and go to Bora Bora. That's what I did a couple months ago. I just came back from Colombia 2 days ago. I was in Jamaica before that. I'm just all over the place because I can. It's fun. I take my computer with me and nothing changes, right? And, you know, I don't mean to dampen the note, but this, like I said, I want to keep it real with you guys, that it also, it's not all fun and games, but sometimes you need freedom for the not so fun aspects of life, right? Like last year, my dad fell terminally ill. Who was there by his side at the hospital every day with her laptop? Me, because I could be, right? Nobody else in the family could afford to do that because they all had to plug in or be somewhere. And I was like, I am running my firm next to him, and it was worth it because he ended up passing, right? And so to have that time frame and be the person that could show up was, I couldn't put a numerical value on that, you know. So that's my end of it. For you, that could be defined differently. It could look like healing burnout. Let's start with that, right? If you know, you know. Like, I'm not going to do a poll because I just know a majority of you are burned out. I just know, because if you're doing family law, you've got to be burned out. There's just no way around it, right? You may want to spend quality time if you do have a partner or if you have children. Maybe you want to, oh my God, get a massage, like get a pedicure for once, right? And take a nap. And you know, maybe you have a family member or you have a partner that needs you to move around with them, right? Or have flexibility. So Andrew asks here, can you practice in multiple states if you're only licensed in one state? And yes, I was just getting to that. So thank you for being my transition point. So advantages of practicing trademarks. First and foremost, it's paperless and electronic. You can be anywhere in the world and there's no paper. There's nothing to print. We operate through the USPTO online portal system. As long as you have Wi-Fi and you mind your time zones, everything goes on Eastern time, by the way. My very first year as an attorney, I screwed that up and I thought it was midnight everywhere. No, it's midnight Eastern. So it doesn't matter. You calculate it, you figure it out, right? It's location independent is the best thing in the world. You can be physically anywhere in the world with one state bar license. You can be physically anywhere in the world, and then your clients can be anywhere also. And again, I should have put an asterisk because yes, double check with your individual bar. Someone's going to come through and be like, well, my bar said. It's super rare, right? Majority of jurisdictions will allow, as long as you're not doing state specific work, which this is not, right? So be mindful of that. And we can talk more about individualized questions you may have. I put my email, by the way, I put my email in the chat at the very beginning, but I'm just going to periodically add it because I want you guys to email me if you have questions about your individual situation. I want you to book a call with me if you're not, if some, you know, wait till I finish, but you know, if you're like, nope, I still got to talk to her, I'll talk to you. I'm happy to get on the phone with you today. It's not, or tomorrow or whatever. It's not a problem. Okay. So clients can be anywhere, right? It's lifestyle friendly, whether you want to travel, raise kids, follow a partner for their job, right? But you don't want to bunk the whole hard work that you did and take another bar exam and do all this nonsense. Like I said, you don't have to take a special exam or certification. Like educate. Yes, the bar rules say that you have to be competent enough to take on a client matter. I'm here for that competency, right? Like the course is here for that. Nothing outside of that is required in terms of an exam or certificate or anything. Like I said, there's no regularly recurring overhead required. It will cost you nothing until you get up and going. And even then, it's stuff that, yes, makes your life work easier, right? We're all in Lawyer on the Beach. This is the beach practice area, right? So yes, there's tools and stuff to help it work and flow on the back end, because who wants to be chained to a computer even if you can be in Bora Bora? Like, why do you want to do that, right? If you could, things can happen with tools and software, but you don't have to, right? So especially if you're thinking about starting out and immersing yourself, aside from investing in your education, which it is what it is, right? Aside from that, there's nothing that you're chained to while you're ramping up. And then tools will make sense, right? Majority of us still run a really lean software tools operation for our practices. It's really nice on that end. Speaking of money, it's usually flat fee. Like I said, the course goes into great depth of detail on how to price your services. In a moment, I'm going to go through the entire syllabus to show you guys all the different modules of what you'll learn and all the stuff we cover. And it's incredibly comprehensive. Like, I really tried to get all the angles of not just teaching a trademark law, because, well, that's fine, but it's pointless and useless if you have no one to do it for. So I am very heavy and very skilled in not only having a demonstrable experience in that, in 14 years of a successful practice, 8 of which have been on my own, right? Obviously, it involves some marketing a little bit, you can imagine, right? But teaching it to the point where my students now have had incredible revenue results as well that I'm going to share with you guys. This one may resonate with some of you, right? Is low drama clients. I have never, I'm knocking on glass because my glass is made, or desk is made of glass. Never in 14 years of practice had a client cry to me. Can any of you say that?
What?
Can any of you say that? I don't mean to brag. I am not trying to show off. I'm trying to show you guys like what this could, like, it doesn't have to suck, right? It does not have to be that bad. So that's one cool thing. The other cool thing is because they're business owners, they're usually tech savvy. So I know, you know, shocker, right? The problematic clients that cry are also like, oh, I don't check my email ever. Oh, my voicemail box is full. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, I'm trying to use tools and you just won't let me make my life easier. Like I'm stuck with you all day long and you have to print things and you want to come into the office and nope. Majority of our clients, again, I can't even remember a client that's like, oh, I don't check email or I don't use, like, they couldn't complete the forms that we had and like, you know, work with us via email. I have not met a client in years, right? Unless I wanted to, I take them out to lunch and dinners and stuff. But I'm saying for consults and meetings and stuff, not even Zoom, everything's on the phone. You could do it on Zoom if you wish, but again, why change the protocol? I have a framework and it works really well, right? For myself and for my students. Remember, I'm coming to you with 600 plus attorneys that I've taught, a good chunk of which have gone on to experience their own financial amazing results, right? So we'll get to that because the proof is in the numbers, right? I can sit here and chit chat all day long, but I believe in proof. So like I said, they're tech savvy, which allows you to be a lawyer on the beach, a lawyer in the mountains, lawyer on the couch, you know, whatever you want to be. Built-in repeat related work. I teach a ton of that. And it lends itself really nicely to systems and templates and automations. So again, even though you can work from anywhere, you're going to find with my instruction that you're not going to be working a whole lot if you structure it correctly. And because it comes in waves, right? Our deadlines are 3 months apart for office actions. First of all, once you file an application, it's a whole year before you're going to hear anything. So you can't do anything about it anyway. You really can't find something fun to do between now and a year. Of course you can, right? No, and there's no penalty. You can use that time wisely to then generate more clientele. You can service your existing clientele. You can offer them other services. And oh my gosh, you can work a couple of days a week. You can block out some time for your consults, a couple hours to file applications, do some searches, and then go pick up your kids and go, you know, go to Disneyland with them, go do fun stuff. You don't have to be on every single day because there's no scheduling order. There's no litigation calendar. Like there's no hearings, right? It's just chef's kiss. So if only there was someone to teach you. It's me. Hi. Does anybody get that reference? It's me.
Come on, no Swifties.
Taylor Swift is on the brain because I'm like, I think I'm the only one on the planet that didn't go to Taylor Swift. And now I'm pissed. I missed my chance. She's in LA and tickets are sold out and I'm pissed. So yes, it's me. Hi, I'm here to teach you. I'm here because I've taught people, right? My course is called 2 Weeks of Trademarks. It's all over the place. It's plastered everywhere. It is the OG trademark course for attorneys. I'm going to start by unapologetically saying that. I originated this content. Now it's been 7.5 years. If you see anyone else attempting to teach trademarks, if it's who I think it is, it's because she took a course of mine, not this one. I'm going to be very clear, but I stand by what I say publicly. She took a course of mine and then created a trademark course to copy it. So that it is what it is. I am the OG. This program now, right? So one thing you should know is that last summer, so about a year ago, we did what was called the big revamp. It's called the revamp, literally, because it had been a few years since I had been teaching. And I was like, I want to just start fresh from the foundation and do brand spanking new content, instructors, packet. We did all new modules, all new topics to supplement, because over the years, as I teach, as I mentor, I learned the things that you guys are struggling with, and whatever gets in your way of seeing that revenue and seeing that freedom, we start building in modules, right? So the revamp as of last summer includes 50 plus years of combined trademark law experience among all of us instructors. So it's me, 2 ex-USPTO examining attorneys, a few other instructors. And so when you combine all of our experience, it's over 50 years. That's a lot of trademark law experience, expertise coming your way, right? There's no competition. There's no way there's any other option besides that one. And personally, I don't see how else you'd want to learn from, especially having 2 ex-attorneys from there. This is also the only course that's going to teach you not only how to practice, because that's well and good and it's really important, but also how to market, get clients, and run the business side of things. I'm a big believer in making money, making a lot of it, right? If that's what you should so desire, and not having it be hard to make that money. Because how many of you put an A in the chat if you're doing fine, like financially, you're like, yeah, I'm making money, but at what cost? Like you're burned out, you're barely sleeping, the money is good, but right? Put an A in the chat if money is good, but there's stress, there's burnout, there's exhaustion, there's crying, there's who knows what, right? The end goal is not making money, but it's being happy, right? So that's why I say money doesn't buy happiness. It just contributes to it, but if it comes at a high cost, and it's not worth it. So the idea here is for the soft life, right? For a soft grind, it's going to be a grind. It's still law practice. I'm not going to lie to you, right? I work hard. I have worked hard, but there's a way to set things up, and you can front load it. If you're serious about really changing the trajectory of your happiness and in your law practice future, yes, some upfront front loaded work could really reroute things. Another couple of cool things about the course, it's on demand, right? It's just like Netflix. You can watch it at your pace, change between the videos. You can't fast forward, excuse me, unfortunately. And that's because we are working on CLE accreditation. There's a very big announcement coming soon. I can't share it with you just yet, but that's why it's not on the slides. So it's your little reward for still being here. But a little birdie told you that if CLE is at all important to you, just trust me. So that's happening. So you can't fast forward, but you can change between the videos and revisit, and you can have it for the rest of your life. You will be hearing this voice until you're done with it, right? And you can come back. So if you're like, oh, she did a video on that, she did a screen share and showed me exactly how to do that one thing, go back, right? If you, for some reason, want to listen to me on the Peloton, you can. There's a mobile app. This is really cool and important. So free ongoing support. I'm not going to charge you for continuing to ask questions and wanting support. That's nuts, right? So many of you are part of, or if not, you should be part of my Facebook group. And this is for any current aspiring trademark attorneys. It's literally trademark attorneys / lawyers. I'm just going to put the name of it in the chat. Boom. So just search that. You'll see my face come up. Please feel free to join us. So we've got a Facebook group for everyone that's interested or currently practicing. Then we've got a private one for just 2 weeks to trademark students. So in the event that you want to ask something more privately or refer to a module and stuff, we have our own community. And then we have a monthly Zoom for everyone in the group, right? The big one. And then we have a monthly Zoom that I host just for us, just for trademark students of mine, right? So tons of opportunities. And what's not listed here, but will be in a moment, is that you actually have opportunity. Oh, thank you, Regina. You actually have opportunities for individual calls with me to keep, to ask your questions, to get your mentoring, to get your tutoring. And I walk you through a strategic plan on how to do, it's customized for you. So if you've been dabbling in the area a little bit, okay, we're going to have a different plan for you. If you're brand new, but you have a newborn, okay, that's going to look different from you than somebody else who's brand new, but doesn't have a child, right? So it's customized, and we'll work together on one-on-one calls. Question for you, put a me in the chat if having one-on-one support with me, individual calls with me, is at all important to you during this process. Because if so, oh, I got something for you. All right, I promise you want to stay tuned. And this is part of the whole bonuses that I was talking about that I've never offered anywhere. It's happening today, and it involves one-on-one calls with me, like lots of them. Okay, and like I said, CLE is in the works. I wish I could say more, but just trust me on this one. It's coming soon. Okay, so the syllabus. This is available in a much larger document, and I have eaten up quite a bit of your time, and I want to wrap up in the next sort of like 15 to 20 minutes. So thanks for hanging with me, and I promise we're wrapping up soon. And again, you'll have this recording, you'll have my slides, you have my email. Email me with any and all questions. You can DM me if that's easier, right? I'm all over Regina's group. So simply search my name, and I will make sure you get an answer in a timely fashion, like within an hour or less, or 30 minutes or less. In fact, you could probably ask me a question now. It'll be a fun little test. You can ask me a question now and you'll get an answer while I'm talking, because I'm not the one actually writing the email. It's called delegation and outsourcing. Okay, so the syllabus includes, the core program is called Boss of Myself, right? That's the 2 weeks of trademarks. There's 2 versions. Boss of Myself is modules 1 through 10. Okay, so intro overview, that's going to be like this, but times 100, right? We go way into in depth. Number 2 module is Rachel Dixon. That's the first of the 2 ex-USPTO examining attorneys. She teaches, I think it was like 3 or 4 hours on searching and technical side of USPTO, all about the examination process, how they do things. And she does a ton of screen share. It was like, I was like, oh my God, like I was just done. I was like, my brain was fried in a good way after that. And then I show searching with Markify. So we want to make sure you have lots of options always. So Markify is my chosen report software company. So I go through, there's a whole session on showing you how Markify works, how to run searches, obviously how to interpret them, how to write opinion letters, what to do with those results. Obviously, the course comes with a ton of templates. So you have a template opinion letter for word marks, template opinion letter for design marks, template fee agreement, right? Like everything you need to get started, intake form, consultation. Even if you haven't even formed your firm yet, there's guidance on that, right? There's a huge starter pack that's included with 2 Weeks to Trademarks that has all the PDFs that you need. Then you'll get to watch. So again, this course was recorded last July. So you'll get to watch the office hours and tutoring that took place. And before you're like, I'm going to skip that, don't skip it, because there is so much learning that takes place in watching other people's questions and seeing the answer to them. Truly, like you don't even think to answer or to think of a question. You're like, I'm not even there yet to have thought about asking. So let alone having the answer to it. It's extremely valuable. And same with the recap group coaching. We hot seated some people and went through their different questions and issues along the way. And it's super valuable. 3-hour module 6, 3 hours or so, all in the application process, super detailed, super screen share tutorial, one by one. 7, that's module 7. Eric Pelton is the second of the 2 ex-USPTO attorneys. He's teaching all about office actions with me. So we partnered up. And that's a very in-depth, very, very detailed tutorial on answering office actions, should you get them. But with good searching, we can mitigate lots of them. And that's part of how I teach. Like I said, there is no fun in practicing an area, even if you're on the beach, if you're still having to work all the time. So we are big on figuring out ways for things to happen without us. So that can look like tools, apps, and software, which is a bonus module we threw in, or it can look like hiring and delegating. So I pulled in one of our paralegals, Tara, and she's teaching with me on how to utilize a paralegal. She's contract, by the way. So again, we're keeping it lean. We're using things and people and expenses only when we need them. So we're not running up a big overhead just to exist in the trademark world, right? Module 9, all about renewals and maintenance. Nothing exciting there, but a necessary part of world. But that does create lots of spin-off work, right? So like I said, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And it's nice because I teach you how to market, right? That we're getting to that in the next slide, but you don't have to, because there's so much potential for repeat revenue and additional services that you can provide that you don't necessarily have. I mean, and imagine if you did both, like it's and that's what my students do, right? You're about to see some really amazing numbers that they're accomplishing. And then number 10, I think this is one of my favorite modules in Boss of Myself. It's USPTO best practices, loopholes, tips, and tricks. Once again, the first of the 2 ex-attorneys is here with us in that module. And man, I mean, that's just, you can't get that information anywhere else but from someone who was on the inside, who spent a career examining applications and now is telling you all the best ways to get around things and how to do things. I mean, it's just practice tips. It's incredible. And I learned a lot, to be honest, even. So that's Boss of Myself, right? This is the OG 2 Weeks to Trademarks that everyone gets, because this is the core practice of trademarks, right? But as we've talked about the recurring theme today, money matters. Yes or no? Put a Y if it matters, put an N if it doesn't. The money matters. The business side matters. How to run things matters. How to give a consultation, how to price your services, right? All that matters. It's pointless to learn a practice area, right? If you don't have someone to do it for. In comes Boss of an Empire. This is the 3rd week, right? So this is the 2nd version of the program. So yes, you get all of that, whether you're myself. Now comes one whole module on social media and contact strategy. We have 2 instructors. These are actually 2 of my past students that wanted to teach with me. They were like, we each have created such amazing lifestyles, both from a freedom standpoint in traveling and also revenue, that they leverage social media and content to do so. So they were like, we want to teach for you. And I'm like, okay. I didn't pay them a penny to teach, by the way. Like that's not something that happened there. So they were happy to come back and teach, and they killed it. They killed it. It was an amazing session on leveraging social media content. Next, Takora Davis, many of you may have heard her name or seen her. She's also one of my oldest students. She was back with me, I think around the time Regina took my class, like 2017 or 18. She in her own right has surpassed $1 million in revenue. So have I, so has she, and so have some of my other students. And obviously the consultation is like, that's day one of the whole thing, right? You can't do anything if you don't have a client. Well, how do you do a consult, right? If someone comes to you and goes, hey, Erin, hey, Lana, hey, Natalia, I'm interested in a trademark. I hear you do that. Well, I don't know what it's, how am I going to answer your questions? What do I say? We got you. It's proven ways to close more business. It's script by script, question by question. We go through all the potential objections and questions that somebody would have. Why wouldn't I use LegalZoom? Why do I need an attorney? Why do I need a trademark? Like, we teach you how to answer all of those. And that material is so good that a student who took it, her name is Annette Kabia. A couple of years ago, she DM'd me and she said, I bought your course. I had a consultation coming up and I was like, I don't have time to mess around. I skipped straight to that one. And she goes, Sonia, I closed $15,000 of new trademark work in 4 days after watching your training on just consultations. And I was like, yeah, because there's a way to do it. You can't be throwing spaghetti at the wall, you guys. Like, I've been doing this for so long. There's a way to do it. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that you can't learn on your own. I sure did, right? But it took me 14 years. Does anybody have 14 years to mess around? Like, I don't even want to disclose how old I'll be, because I'm older than you think I am. I get that a lot. People are like, oh, you're a kid. I'm like, I certainly don't want to spend 14 years learning something that someone could tell me in 20 to 30 hours, right? Which is what the course involves. So we got Conquer the Consultation. Then, as I mentioned, Pricing Playbook, how to set your trademark fees and get paid what you're worth. Money matters. I'm not going to apologize for that for you guys. I want you to make money. I want you to do well. There's a way to do it. And rather than you going around guessing, so many of the students in that session were like, oh my God, I am undercharging. Oh my God, no wonder I'm not profitable. No wonder I'm hand to mouth. And I'm like, oh, honey bear, right? So we'll get you all the way together in there. Takora is back with me on module 14, and we break down systems, processes, and client communication. So again, keeping that back end running smoothly. One of the strengths of trademarks is that it lends itself, right? It's each client is different, and their situation and their market is different. Their business is different. But so much of it is able to be lent to systems and processes and templates, and having a way that you do client communication just to streamline. Because once again, yes, I want you to go to Bora Bora, and I don't want you to have to work if you don't have to, or do minimal, right? Like check in, do the things that are necessary. But when you can have things run in the background, if you set them up correctly, right? This is how we're teaching you to do that. And then we end with a grand finale, which is the wow factor, how to build referrals for a steady stream of trademark clients without advertising. So one thing that a lot of people don't realize is one of the many strengths of the level of experience I have is that, yes, you can create social media and content, but there is a group of people that will see trademarks far more frequently and more often than you ever will. Referral building, right? Who are those people? I'm not going to gatekeep. I do talk about who those people are. And I'll give you some examples today in case you want to call me out, right? If you want to call my bluff, I give you a couple examples, not to hide the ball. And so why not work smarter and not harder, and work on a strategy outreach to find those people in your community? And then you have a steady flow of trademark work. It sounds too good to be true, but it's not. One of the people I met a long time ago in one of those buckets is still responsible for like 6 figures a year in revenue for me, because he just sees it all the time. Sneak preview, he's a franchise attorney. So franchising is one of those buckets of people that a lot of people don't know this, right? As an insider tip, one of many. Franchise attorneys see trademarks almost every day, because in order to do franchising, in most cases, you need a federal trademark registration. A lot of them don't do it. They don't want to do it. They like what they're doing. You know, they're happy. And so, you know, they're like, yeah, go talk to Sonia, go talk to Erin, right? Go talk to Regina, and then come back to me. Somebody asked if Boss of an Empire is available separate from Boss of Myself. It is. We haven't rolled it out yet, but gosh, I get so many questions about people. You're meaning just wanting week 3? Is that what you mean, Rashida? By the way, that's my dad's sister's name. My dad who passed away, it's his sister's name. So now you just softened my heart a little. Even if it's not available, I'll give it to you. I'm like, okay, fine. You got me where you got me. But yes, no, a lot of people ask about just wanting week 3, because it could be that weeks 1 and 2 are not, not a fit for you, or maybe you're past that level. And yes, that is something that we are considering rolling out. And if that's something you're interested in, please shoot us an email. It's not part of the core offer, but we can make it happen for you if it's something that you're interested in. So just shoot us an email and we'll take care of it. So in addition to this week 3, right? Remember I told you we revamped the course all of last year, right? But I don't gatekeep. So you still get the entire OG material from 2017, 18, 19 as well. And so essentially you get 2 courses for 1, right? And in that course is this powerhouse that I taught called Rainmaking 2.0. 2.0 because the 1.0 is just the basic collecting business cards, putting them in a pile when you get home in a drawer, and then you never talk to them again, right? Like, cool, everyone does that. That's not special. But we go through, this is a 9-module course that I taught with the following topics. So mindset, time management, branding, press and media, networking, relationship building, social media, wow factor part 1. And then there was some laser coaching. That is such a valuable class in and of itself that someone said that it doubled their yearly revenue. Just that class doubled their yearly revenue just by doing it correct, just by marketing better, right? So that class is included in Empire for free because it was already part of the previous package. And why keep it, right? Why not just give it to you guys? So some thoughts you may be having, because I've been doing this for a while. What's the catch? There's got to be a catch. Is there enough trademark work to go around? How am I going to get clients? Is there a chance this won't work for me? How long will it take for me to get my first client? And I'm scared. I got you. Hugs from Zoom, warm hugs, because it's going to be okay. What's the catch? As someone mentioned, I think it was Andrew. Let me double check. Richard, I apologize. Yes, you asked about liability insurance, and I was like, okay, I'll come back to that because I knew there was a slide on it. So trademarks are amazing for all the millions of reasons you are probably aware of now, right? There's a couple of catches if you want to perceive them to be such, right? Number 1, your cost of malpractice insurance is going to be impacted. Okay, that's a fact. For some inexplicable reason, trademarks is an expensive area to insure. It hasn't stopped any of us. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what we make and compared to the lifestyle we get to have and the freedom and the happiness, right? But it is going to be impacted. A couple of pointers. Number 1, talk to mBroker. I'm going to put the name in the chat. I don't have a relationship with them. I found them through Kim Bennett. I don't know if you guys know her. She's like the subscription queen. She's a friend of mine. And a few years ago, she told me about mBroker. Online, easy application. It actually saved me a lot. And I was like, wow, this is for all the same coverages. It was a lot less somehow. You're welcome, Richard. I was blown. So I was like, okay, I'm going to tell everybody about mBroker. Again, I'm not affiliated with them. I'll disclose when I have a partnership with someone like I do with Markify and when I don't. So that's one thing. Number 2, the thing with trademarks and malpractice is that the key question is what percentage of your practice is going to be trademarks versus others. So if you're in beginner stages, say so appropriately, right? Like don't say 100% of your trademark practice is trademarks because that's going to it up. And it's not even true. Mine is, so yeah, I pay a premium, right? But if you're starting out, maybe 10% or 15, right? So that's one, and they'll walk you through the questions, but that's something that, hopefully can help. But yes, it's going to be impacted. I mean, it is what it is. Question here from Emmy. If it's not required by our state bar, do we still need to have insurance? I mean, the law doesn't require putting a case on your phone, but it's probably the best idea to, right? Like you don't have to, right? Apple doesn't require it, but like I do, it's an individual decision. I would, but I completely understand not wanting to, right? I would say maybe get a quote and just see if you can break up the payments and see if you can swing it. It's better to have it than not to. But that's an individual decision. There's nothing about the field of trademarks that would require it. It's ruled by your jurisdiction.
And I would say the new practice area, definitely err on the side of insurance. I don't have insurance because I do family law and people are shocked by that, but we're not required to have it. But I've been practicing 22 years. At this point, honestly, I've made it impossible for me to commit malpractice. It's not happening. We're also in a state, I should mention this too, because I didn't find this out until I mentioned I had no insurance and everyone was like, So we're in a state where you can't just sue someone for malpractice. You have to get an affidavit from an attorney or professional. This is malpractice across the board to say, yes, I agree that this person has committed malpractice. So it's a pretty high bar in my state. If you are in a state where anybody can just sue you for pretty much any reason, then you want representation, then yes. But so that's just something you have to think about, based on your risk tolerance and what your state pretty much allows. And obviously we have special malpractice rules, which just makes it pretty much impossible that I'm going to get sued for malpractice. I don't have it. But for a new practice area, I would definitely recommend it because you're going to mess it up at some point.
Yeah. And it's like, if you can swing it, and again, be really like about that piece of declaring what percentage, because it's true. Like you're 100% of your practice likely is not going to be trademarks on day one, and you can increase it as you go, but that will help. It's like a sliding scale. So that will help. The other big sort of, if you want to perceive it as such, and I keep it real because I want people to know about these things so that you're not for sure entering. I don't want people to enter the program if it's not a fit for them, right? I really want to make sure that it is. But entering the practice area, because they're like, damn, I didn't know that. So I want you to know, we bear the responsibility of educating our potential clients. We are a preventative practice area, much like estate planning, if you want to think about it that way, rather than crim or divorce, where it's like, I know kind of lawyer I need. There's no issue with it. Like I know who to call, it's very clear what a divorce lawyer does, right? It's not so clear. And especially because some of this, all those earlier slides about people don't realize this, the domain name stuff, the word marks, whatever, like the classes, nobody knows that stuff. Most laypersons don't know that stuff. And there's a ton of misinformation out there. So either people have the wrong information or none at all. So yes, we do bear the responsibility of educating our potential clients, which is why we spend so much time in Empire learning that of how to create the content, how to educate your audience, because that's a part of it, right? I mean, there's no perfect practice area. This is a unicorn in the sense of all the amazing things, but it's not perfect. And I don't want to represent it as such, right?
And the great thing about there being so much misinformation on trademarks is you can make it part of your marketing. And that's honestly something that Decora has done really, really well. So she goes by the creator's lawyer and the creator's law firm. So there's always something in the news coming up about, I think there was like Kim Kardashian was accused of ripping off Skims from this Australian company, something. That's as far as I got into it. But anyway, so there's plenty of blog posts and discussions about those things. And it was just a way for, her to get her name out there, and her name is out there. So a lot of people kind of tag her in different articles about, hey, what is your take on this? So there's so much stuff out there that you can create content, which is obviously marketing, based on people's knowledge about trademarks, which is none. People don't know. Or anything.
Wrong, right? Yeah. And the Kardashians alone give us enough headlines on a regular basis when it comes to trademarks. So you got Kanye, you got Kylie, you got Kim, it's like never ending. Pop culture has a ton, so there's so much to pull from in terms of educating and making it relevant and making it something, that people will click on, right? So that's something that we talk a lot about in the content and social media module is, creating stuff that people will actually read. The nuts and bolts of trademark law, snore, right? What Kim Kardashian got wrong in her trademark, like 5 things Kim Kardashian is doing wrong with her branding. I'm going to click that, right? Like if I care at all, if I've been hearing about headlines. So yes, there's tons of potential there. And there's a way to reframe it too. I mean, we live in a world now where you can create content from the comfort of your home. We learned that during the pandemic that everyone can do things from home now. And I mean, it doesn't get any easier than to be clacking at your computer or putting a camera on if you so should choose video, but even to type up stuff or create an email or to do a post. I mean, it's never been easier. You don't even have to leave your house, like right now I have yoga pants on underneath this like nice blouse. Like, it's just like, no one knows. It's amazing. We live in a world where it's never been easier. So if the catch is creating education materials, like posts and newsletters and PDFs and guides and stuff, I mean, it could be a lot worse, right? And I suspect it's better at least than dealing with family law clients. I don't know.
Almost anything is. I mean, probably in your practice, you never had to write a motion about someone smearing feces on a door to stop a realtor from entering the house because they didn't want the house to be sold in divorce. That's probably not something that comes up a lot in trademark law.
That's never. I can comfortably say that has never happened. No. It just really doesn't happen. Now, it's funny on our end, but it's like someone will have this like whack-a-mole idea for something, and you're just like, I'm not paid to have an opinion. I'm not paid to have an opinion. I'm not paid to have an opinion on the lucrative nature of your business, right? Like it's like a Shark Tank thing where you're like, are you kidding me? But it's like, you got a good brand, all good. Joe says that's a shitty day. That's great.
It was. It literally
That's
was.
awesome.
I have pictures of it and everything.
Awesome.
It was
That's
great.
too good. Okay, so this is another popular question I get. Is there enough trademark work, right? Like if it's so great and whatever, and you're going around teaching it to everybody, yes, there's enough. Year to date, and we're only in August, barely. Year to date, over 325,000 applications filed with the USPTO. On average, I have very new statistics. On average, the USPTO receives over 500,000 applications yearly. Okay, so I'm no mathematician, but the average value, if we want to put it like that, is, let's call it on the low end 3,500. Okay, of a new trademark matter, which is why I say you'll make up the cost of the course should you choose to enroll within literally your first client and 1.5 clients at most, right? But 3,500 times even 10, right? Which is a drop in the bucket of how many clients you can get, especially with my instruction. That's $35,000. I'm no mathematician. I just added these commas and zeros. I'm just saying, you know? So yes, there's plenty of work to go around, and you'll feel much more comfortable when you see some of the stories of my students and what they've done in their practices. You'll feel a lot better. Number 2, how am I going to get clients? So we just talked about this a little bit, but I want to give you guys some reassurance because I don't want anyone to feel nervous, right? Content creation is a big thing. Maybe you're not a video person. Maybe you could be a written person, right? Unfortunately, fortunately, there are lots of ways to go about this. Some work better and faster than others, right? I teach you the ones that work, and then I work with you to do the ones you choose. Does that make sense? So it's a lot like fitness. People say you just have to be active, right? You can walk, you can go to yoga, you can lift weights, you can swim. There's a million ways to do it, right? Pick your way, and then let's invest in that. And if you say, hey, I am not a video person, no problem. We'll figure out a way that works for you in those calls, okay? So there's written, there's spoken, there's lots of ways. Like I said, there's a dozen or so like golden categories of people that absolutely see trademarks every day, more often, more frequently, and quality clients, right? People who are not like, what's a trademark? They're like, I need one. Like, let's get this going, right? I see some comments of people who are who have to hop off, and thank you so much for joining. We will please make sure you guys check your email if you're jumping off, because I don't want you to miss the offer that I'm about to give, because it involves a lot of personal calls with me, like a lot. So I'm serious about making sure that you get that one-on-one instruction to get this stuff going if you want to. So yes, we spend 2 or 3 hours going over all of this and how to outreach. I work with you guys individually on picking out a route that works for you when it comes to getting clients, so you are covered. Is there a chance this won't work for me? Yes. Everything in life carries a risk. I'm no ATM. I wish I could print you money. I can't. This is not printing money. It sounds like it is. When you're about to see some of the numbers I show you, it will look like it, but it's not, right? It comes down to 2 things. Number 1, you have to watch all the modules. You have to watch the course, right? Duh. You'd be surprised, right? Like I have people come to me and go, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and we have analytics. So I can see when you log in and what percentage of the module you viewed or didn't view. And if it's like 0%, I'm like, well, no wonder you ain't doing it. No wonder, right? I can't get fit if I don't go to the gym. Silly goose, right? And then of course, not just watching passively, but you have to actually implement what I'm teaching, right? That's very, very key. And so the results you're about to see are from students that did these things and did them consistently and didn't waste any time. How long till I get my first client? AKA, how long till I make my money back from investing in the course? Easy. Recoup the cost between 1 to 2 new clients. After that, it's all yours, right? I'm not coming. It's kind of like a joke between my clients and me. And I'm like, I should have made some rev share agreement with you guys, because damn, you out here clearing 6, 7 figures and I don't get any of it. But I'm happy. Like, as like the big sis, what makes me happier, right? I'm an instructor. My job is to teach you how to fly. And when I see you flying, I'm like, you're killing it, right? So an investment in learning, is a drop in the bucket when you start really profiting off of it. And majority of my students retain clients before they've even finished watching the course. So that's some good news. You do have to finish watching it, but you can start retaining clients before. I've had some of my students come to me and say, hey, look, I know about watching and whatnot, but I have a consult tomorrow, so I got to use one of my calls with you. I'm like, okay, I will get you all the way together. I will make sure you're prepped for your consult, because retain that client, then come back and finish watching your modules, and I'll keep working with you, right? So whatever angle you find yourself, we will figure you out. I'm scared. You might be scared. I don't blame you. Most of my attorneys, most of the photos you're about to see are going to be of attorneys who felt the same way at one point. I would ask you, what is the cost of putting in some work now? And make no mistake, it is some work. None of the people you're going to see just woke up and printed money. That's not what this is. It's not a get rich quick scheme, you know? So what's the cost of putting in some work now versus the cost of doing nothing and everything stays the same, as you just still hate your life, right? Honestly, you got to choose your hard. It's hard at first, okay, to transition to something better, and it gets easier. But it's really hard, even harder to be just burned out and your situation is just with no hope. And it's just every day looks the same if you don't change it, right? I mean, I didn't come up with that, but it's true. And most of my students have been in your shoes and they've come out on the other side a lot happier. You're going to see their full names, faces, numbers. I don't hide anything, right? Look at all these people. I made the fastest, easiest money in the last few months. Your classes helped me. Taking 2 weeks of trademarks is the best money I've ever spent. Class was well worth the money. I was skeptical about investing, but I'm glad I did. I engaged 1 client and 2 more since the course ended. I mean, here's more, right? Time and money well spent. Sonia was able to share tricks that come with years of practice. Courses get you up and running, exactly what I needed. My confidence increased tenfold, exceeded my expectations. And this is my favorite slide. The proof is in the numbers, guys. So I invite you guys to, if you are interested, peruse my YouTube channel. It's linked directly from my website. And if you Google my name, it's there. You'll see the interviews I did with a lot of and I'm doing more and more every other day. I have over 600 students. So there's so much potential, and it takes time to get through all their interviews, but I'm doing like a, where are you now, right? What's happened since you took the course? This is not a money grab for me. And I want to be clear about that, because I have a successful law practice, but to turn around, keep that, turn around, and then show others how to do it and watch them. You guys, that is a reward of my lifetime. Like, I don't have kids, but my legacy and my footprint on this world is this right here. Like, you have Nicole. She transitioned from family law, single mom, is now able to provide for her daughter, averaging 5 to new trademark clients per week. What? Merlin, law firm revenue now at 2.5 times what it was prior to taking the course. Saludo added 50K of new trademark business in his first year alone. And oh my bejesus. Berkeley doubled and tripled her revenue within 9 months of taking 2 weeks of trademarks. Oh, sorry, there's a typo, only 9 months ago. But it's good to reiterate, right? I mean, these are really incredible results, and they're not taking 14 years of practice to achieve. And if they can do it, you can do it. So will you be next? Put a $sign in the chat if you are ready to make some monies. Put a $sign. I want to see it. Let's do it. Let me help you. All right. So Boss of Myself versus Boss of an Empire, right? Important. There's 2 versions of the course. What all do you get? So you get all those modules we walked through, right? The core program, 30+ hours of instruction, 2 ex-USPTO examining attorneys. Everybody gets that. Templates, everybody gets that. Free online groups, obviously, for ongoing support, you get that. You get exclusive discounts with the partnerships that I've lined up, and I disclose where they are, but they're only there to help you, right? I mean, if you're going to run a search report, you might as well get a discount on your first year's worth with Markify, right? So I've lined up some discounts on not a bunch that you need, really. It's a few, but if you do need them, there's a discount there. On demand, the second you enroll, you'll get automatic access, binge all you want, and you're up and running. You can watch, skip around between the videos. Again, you can't fast forward anymore. And that's for CLE reasons, which small price to pay, right? To get CLE credit, not bad. Lifetime access to all materials. Everybody gets that. Now, here is the other end of it, right? So we talked about consultations, pricing, wow factor, Rainmaking 2.0, which is its own course, social media contact strategy. And this is the important part here, personal one-on-one calls with me. So Boss of Myself was designed for the attorney who was not really worried about marketing so much as learning the practice area, because people are asking them about it already, right? They've got it kind of coming in. Based on the poll today, I'm seeing that a lot of you, majority of you, are brand new to trademarks. So you're not marketing, you're not getting inquiries, because like it's such a different world for you, right? You're going to want to look at Boss of an Empire, because again, I mean, it's important to learn how to practice the trademark practice area. Yes, it's important to learn that, but it is no fun if you don't know how, if you don't have anyone to do it for. So that's why with Empire, you get 2 personal calls with me, plus all those other modules we talked about. And that's where the marketing and business side is, right? That's really where the juice is. Now, for the fun part, right? And we're on the tail end, so stay with me. Thank you for your patience if you're still around. We are wrapping up, and I'm going to give you guys a link to enroll, but I just want to share some really exciting perks, because you've invested now almost 2 hours of your time, right? If you bill at even $300 an hour, right? That's $600 of billable time that you've given me today. I'm about to make it worth your while as a giant thank you. So this is the first and only time I've ever done this. I'm doing it only for Regina's group. We are doubling the amount of calls you get with me individually, one-on-one, no gimmicks, no fine print. So instead of 0 on Boss of Myself, you would have gotten none, right? You would just be relying on the Facebook group and the Zooms that we have ongoing and stuff, which is great. But who doesn't want some one-on-one time with her instructor or their instructor? You get 2 if you enroll today only. Okay. Now, Boss of Myself, Boss of an Empire, you were going to get 2 because you need to, right? If you're brand new to the area and you're needing all that marketing help, that's why you did that version. You need one-on-one guidance to get your practice off the ground. How am I going to market if I'm coming from family? I don't know what to do. You're going to get 2. Guess what? Now you get 4 individual calls with me, right? I've never, ever offered that before. And I'm pleased to do it. I mean, this has been a great group, and you guys have invested a lot of time with me today. So if you're trying to decide between the 2, I put pricing, and I have put a little note that just helps you separate. If you're already getting some clients, you don't want any marketing help, go with Boss of Myself. If you know that that's useless to you unless you have someone to do it for, right? Go with Boss of an Empire. Either way, you're going to recoup the cost within 1 to 2 clients. It's a slam dunk. And that I feel very confident and comfortable telling you that. Like that's not an issue for me at all. It's now getting you to some of those numbers you saw. Let's have you start doubling and tripling your revenue. And then, and then let's see, right? Like, let's see how fun life becomes. That's the first major offer that we're providing, is that we're doubling the amount of calls you get today with Regina's code, which is LOTB. And I'll give you all of that in just a moment. So not only that, you get $500 off either version, and both versions have payment plans, which is so nice, right? You can break it up into split pay. You can do shop pay, which is like an installment plan. There's so many options. You're not penalized for using a payment plan. It is more expensive when you total it all up, though. I'm not going to lie to you. It is what it is. I mean, we have to do it that way, right? But you can get the $500 off either version, even on a payment plan, right? So if you go back, either one, you're going to get $500 off by enrolling today. You're going to get double the amount of calls, right? And for those of you who are like, I am ready, I'm not messing with split pay, I'm not doing none of that nonsense, you get a free audit. If you do split pay, I will do a free audit of your website or your social media page of choosing, and I will critique it. I go, this needs to be moved, that change that, this is what you need. And we're going to optimize it for trademark practice, right? So I'm going to reroute it and get you all the stuff that you need to have in there, all the elements, and how you critique it and move things around. That is free to you. It could also be your Instagram. It could be your Facebook page. It could be anything you want, your LinkedIn page. But we're going to help optimize it for bringing in trademark work from now on. So if you do full pay option, that's my reward to you. But if you don't, you still get the $500 off, and you still get the double calls. So here are the rules. Enroll before midnight Eastern today. You double your number of calls. Instead of 0 calls, you get 2 with Boss of Myself. Instead of 2 calls with Boss of an Empire, you get 4, plus consultation, pricing, referral building, marketing, like all the juice is in Empire. You got to use the code LOTB at checkout, because otherwise we won't know if it's you, right? I have no way of tracking that. So make sure you use the code at checkout. If you do full pay, you'll get that free audit of a website or social media page of your choosing. And I'm not going to be shy. You've already seen how real I keep it. I'm going to let you know what needs to be changed, and we're going to optimize it, right? We're going to make it much, much more attractive if you're serious about this practice area. So any questions? Any questions at all? As you're thinking about questions you may have, I want you to do me one last favor. You've stayed with me for 2 hours. If you're on the fence, think about what it's going to cost you to stay in the same shoes now. Let's say we talk again in a year and you're like, nothing's changed except that I've got some more gray hair, some more wrinkles, and I'm just even, shocker, more unhappy, right? Even if you're making good money, especially if you're not, it's time to try something new. But even if you are, at what cost, right? If you're happy and nothing's wrong, then so be it. But I suspect that that's not the case based on the polls. So I would love for you to envision what it's like to see one of those flight deals that you see, you know, $300 to Paris, throw your laptop in a bag and just be like, yeah, I'm going to practice trademarks, right? Like I'm going to do my work from somewhere else. I'm going to market from somewhere else. You don't even have to be in person to start the practice, right? To get things off the ground. And think about being able to say yes to a midday lunch, yes to an afternoon massage or a round of golf, seeing your kids' functions. It's really, really hard to put a price on that when you think about it in the long run. So who's ready? I'm going to share the enrollment link with you guys in just a moment. Oops, nope, I went backward. Here is the information. Let me grab the link for you guys. And remember, please, please remember that you have to use the code LOTB at checkout because otherwise we have no way of tracking it. And that would be a bummer.
Because you won't get your free stuff. No.
Yeah, you got to get your free stuff. You get 2 calls. Yeah, I mean, you get $500 off from the jump, even on a payment plan. You get, by just enrolling today, right? You get double the amount of calls. I mean, if you're like even at all on the fence, that right there, I'm like, I will get you all the way together on these calls. You just trust me, right? Like that's actually one of my favorite parts of teaching is the one-on-one. And then if you do full pay instead of split pay, I'll rework your website with you, right? I'm not going to get in there and start moving things around by hand, but I'm going to critique it and give you some feedback and say, I'm going to do a full audit of this. This is good. These parts are good. This is not. This is what I see as a brand new visitor. I'm going to tell you what I think of your logo. Like we'll rework the whole thing. So I think that's kind of a cool option. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to put my email. If you have any questions, I would love to have you enroll. Please make sure you do it before midnight because there are no exceptions and that's Eastern time. We're going to get you in the habit now of following Eastern time because I live in California. I travel a lot and I'm always operating on Eastern time because I'm like, that's the one that counts. So midnight Eastern, wherever you are, there's the link to enroll. Make sure you use LOTB at checkout. If the split pay is what you're needing, right? You're needing the payment plans, totally fine, right? Let's say the way that we split it is still not feasible for you. I don't want anyone to be penalized because they can't swing the payments. There is a little note, like if you need even more payment options. In fact, you know what? Instead of just chit-chatting, why don't I show you where it is so that you can see it?
While she's doing that, in terms of video, it's going to take a while to convert and upload to YouTube. So it'll be up sometime this afternoon. And I have to trim out the first part of it. You saw me struggling with the baby. So
I think you did great. It looked like you did great.
That's what she wanted. That's what she got. She got a live, intact baby at the end of it.
I love that. I just love that. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you. This is what you see when you click that link I put in the chat. You're going to scroll down. You get to see the syllabus. You get to see all kinds of stuff. Here are the 2 versions of the course. So let's say you go enroll now, right? Because let's say you're doing Boss of an Empire. It sounds like that's the right fit for most of you just because you're new to the practice area. You're going to need that marketing assistance and those one-on-one calls. I mean, you get 4 of them. Good God. Like tell me we can't get you going after that. There's no way. So we've got the different options here, right? And remember to use, this is a different code, but it's the same amount. So fear not, right? You're like LOTB will get you. You got to use LOTB. Please, 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 please use that. Like it's so hard for my team to track. It's next to impossible. So please, if you're going to do it, make sure you use the code. See, it takes $500 off. And then you can play around with like the split pay options. But let's say this is still not what you need. Click here and it will open up additional smaller options through Shop Pay, which is like an installment plan and has some questions that makes you go through and stuff. I'm not involved in that, obviously, but we set it up to make sure that it was as accessible for you, you know, as possible. So that being said, please email with questions. Please feel free. I will answer you in a timely manner, because if you're serious about the deadline, I don't want you to miss it. If you want to talk, let's say I didn't cover, you know, a question you had, or you have an individualized situation, right? That's okay too. Email me and just say, hey, I'd like to briefly chat before I enroll. You know, is there anything that you might be able to help me with, or is there a time that we can chat? And I absolutely will. I will do it. If I can answer your questions via email, I will. If I can send you a voice note via email, I do that a lot, and I can answer your question pretty efficiently. And if we need to get on the phone, we can do that. So shoot me an email, shoot me a DM, right? If you're on Facebook and you don't want to mess with email, that's fine too. Just remember, Lawyer on the Beach code LOTB gets you $500 off. Oh my gosh, why is this stalling? $500 off, even on a payment plan. If you enroll today at all, you get double the amount of calls. You guys, I know I keep going on and on about it, but that's a really big deal for any instructor, you know, with the schedule that I have, to be able to carve that time out. But I really think that I've seen so much growth happen in those calls that I'm like, yes, we need to do more of them. So get your double calls, midnight Eastern, right? And if you go full pay, if you go all in, we'll chop up your website and make sure that, you know, it's ready for business. One last thing, and if you have any questions, use the DM feature too. If you're like, I don't want to tell everybody or do everyone, you can just DM me here on Zoom. One last thing, because I know we got an email about this while I was talking, and I'm gonna just, it wasn't part of my presentation, but I'm going to share it with you just because it came up. So I'm dropping in the chat here a link to a deposit. So we got a question. See, this is how automation works. I got a question and I'm able to answer it while I'm still talking to you. So question about, you know, okay, I know the full pay, that's not going to happen, right? Split pay, not going to happen. Shot pay, not going to happen. But I don't want to miss out on this. I'm serious about this. I want to show you that I'm serious. I want my, you know, hundreds of calls. How do I show you that I'm serious? If you want to put down a deposit, I just put down the link. Like I said, it's not on the slides. It's not part of my presentation, but I'm okay with it. If you put down a deposit, right, it locks in, number one, the current pricing, which, as I mentioned, I can't go into a lot of detail, but CLE is right around the corner. So I assure you the price is going to go up once I lock that in. Like, once I'm able to fully say, it's like, I can say it, but I can't. But like, if you're interested in CLE for the hours you're going to spend learning from me, it's just short of guaranteed, right? Almost guaranteed. So yes, you're going to get that. But once we fully roll that out, the price is going to go up, because that's a really, really huge value. So number one, a deposit locks you in the current pricing. Whatever it is as of today, it will be that way for you. But what it really does is it makes you a buyer as of today. So that's important. Now, you can't game the system and get $500 off the deposit. That's not how it works, right? A deposit's a deposit. And I'll know because the deposit came in today. And so we're going to block all those off as they came in, you know, wanting to do this offer. But does that make sense? Is anybody confused about that? So if you can't do full pay and you can't do split pay and shot pay installments don't work for you, that's okay. And you want to still lock in all of this, deposit counts as enrolling today. You'll still get double the calls based on the version that you choose. Make sense? Hopefully that helps, right? At least allows you to kind of get going. Now, you won't get the material, obviously, until you enroll, right? Silly. But I think that still counts as a nice perk. What other questions can I answer? Anything at all? Well, you have my email. You know all the ways to reach me. I am here. Like I said, deadline is midnight Eastern. We are serious about that. But with that, either way, I hope that you learned a good amount about trademarks today, enough to be dangerous, enough to issue spot if you need to. And I look forward to staying in touch. Whether or not you enroll, please consider me a resource in this area and a friend and a mentor in this practice area. If you don't enroll now or you never do, and if it's not a fit, right, that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't ever talk to me. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to, if you have anything, like, just consider me a friend, consider me a resource. And as someone mentioned, if you're really only looking for that Empire portion, shoot us an email, because that's not part of the core offer, but we can make some, we can arrange it if that's really, really what you're wanting. And with that, I thank you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you around Lawyer on the Beach.